In this video, I'm going to give you my predictions for UFC 285. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. We had a strong few weeks that came to a screeching halt last week. Last week was rough, but we come back more motivated than ever to knock this park out of the card. Park out of the card. Oscar, if you're going to write the script, proofread it first. Would it kill you to proofread it? Jeez Louise. If anybody's looking for Oscar's job, it's definitely up right now. You can put in the comments that you want Oscar's job. I'll reach out to you. The show's getting big. You know that, right? Anyways, I will not waste another second of your time. We'll start right at the top of the card. We have the return of the best to ever do it, Jon Jones. He's fighting Ciryl Gane this week, and this is a fight that I couldn't be more excited for because Ciryl Gane is by far the most talented heavyweight we've ever seen. The movement, strength, athleticism, cardio, shot selection, range, all of it's incredible stuff from the Frenchman. Hell, he was even a botched heel hook away from beating Francis Ngannou. He's easily the hardest fight in all of sports right now, and Jon Jones, after a long layoff making his heavyweight debut, takes on the challenge. That's why he's the GOAT! Now, I could go on and on about the accolades for Jon Jones, right? Youngest champion, most world titles, things of that nature, but that's not the point of this show. We make predictions, and for me, the prediction is Jon Jones wins this fight by decision. And I expect Jon Jones to win more rounds than Gane because he's going to be much better in the clinch. He's always been surprisingly strong, and I see him looking way stronger than Ciryl Gane in the clinch by being able to control him, landing elbows, knees, shoulder strikes, foot stomps, takedown attempts. That's all going to give Gane major issues. On top of that, we know that Jon Jones has that competitive drive like nobody else. He doesn't get hurt by big shots. He doesn't get tired even if he's fighting at a high pace, and he's willing to throw his game plan completely out the window if it isn't working. At that point, he makes adjustments and he finds ways to win. And I don't want to discredit Ciryl Gane because his resume is incredible, right? Tied to Ivasa, takes him out in the third round. Francis Ngannou, again, very close to beating him. Finishes Derek Lewis, beats Volkov over 5 rounds, beats Jairzinho Rosenstruck over 5 rounds. And in these fights that he's winning, he's not even losing rounds. He's not even losing minutes. The guy's a beast. The guy's incredible. But what he lacks is the experience, especially the championship experience that Jon Jones has. Jon Jones is coming in with more championships than Ciryl Gane has fights. He's the better grappler by a mile. Francis Ngannou was able to out-grapple Ciryl Gane, and of course he used solid technique and he overwhelmed him with strength, but he shouldn't be getting out-grappled by Francis Ngannou, because I believe that if Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones were to hit the mat, Jon Jones would be on his back tapping him out inside of 3 minutes. So I could see Jones overwhelming Gane with his wrestling this week, so I expect him to clinch. I expect him to get that inside trip, start landing some heavy elbows from guard. And from a betting perspective, you can get Jon Jones around -160. You can get the best to ever do it for around -160. Imagine if you were able to get odds like that on Floyd Mayweather. And if you want to get slightly better odds, you could take the over 4.5 sitting around -140 right now, because that's better than Jon Jones's price. You're still going to get potential upside from Ciryl Gane if he wins, and I think this fight does go the distance. But the official pick here is Jon Jones. It's going to be by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight with Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. The Queen is going to add another ruby to her belt because Alexa Grasso is beat everywhere. Alexa Grasso hasn't seen a striker even remotely close to Valentina's level. Even in the UFC, one can argue that the best striker she's gone up against is Joanne Calderwood. On top of that, I could see Shevchenko wanting to make a statement in this spot. Her last fight against Taila Santos was a split decision. I thought she won personally, but many didn't. Many are saying that Taila Santos should have won. She should be the champion right now. Shevchenko hears that. She knows that, and the best way to quiet down that kind of talk is to score a finish in dominant fashion. Now, the positives for Grasso is that she's tough. She throws a lot of strikes. She has pace on them. She has good cardio. But the best way to handle a fighter like that is to put them on their back, and that's exactly what I see Valentina doing. She'll strike with her for the first round or two, or for the first round and a half, and then she's eventually going to take her down. And once Grasso's down, I think that Shevchenko finds it back and gets a rear naked choke. Now, Valentina is a massive favorite, and women's MMA has produced some of the biggest underdog upsets of all time. But I have total confidence in the true pound-for-pound best female fighter we've ever seen. So give me Valentina Shevchenko. Make her a parlay piece if you'd like on the money line, but if you want to get specific, I think Valentina Shevchenko wins this fight by submission. Next, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's fighting Geoff Neal this week. My, oh my, is Shavkat Rakhmonov good. He does everything right. On the feet, he has power. He doesn't get hit that much. He also out-grapples everybody he faces, and he's finished all 16 of his professional fights. We're looking at a true super prospect, and a guy who could justifiably get a title shot here with a win over Geoff Neal. As for Geoff Neal, he's coming off a signature win over Vicente Luque, where he absolutely battered that man. He knocked him spark out in the 3rd round. After looking tired and even taking a few minutes off, he was still able to find that knockout blow. What you get from Geoff Neal realistically are hips, hands, and heart. The guy can throw heavy, the guy's not going to give up on himself, and the guy can defend a takedown. And I think he's going to have to lean heavily on that great takedown defense this week, because Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to look to take him down. And I think Rakhmonov is going to look to grapple for a few reasons. One, he's got the advantage there, but two, Geoff Neal's got those hands of steel, baby. Like, he's landing heavy. Rakhmonov doesn't want to play that game. Many people in the world don't want to play that game on the feet with Geoff Neal for good reason. Now, while Geoff Neal won't give up on himself, we have seen times where he's taken his foot off the gas and at times could look a little checked out of the fight. Like when you look at that fight against Wonderboy, he was doubled up on strikes and he kind of lost that competitive spirit. It didn't seem like he was in a fight. It seemed like he was in an athletic contest after the 3rd round. And he was also outworked by Neil Magny. Now on the other side, Shavkat Rakhmonov dominated Neil Magny. So the pick for me is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov, not just because of the MMA math there, but because he's got the grappling to fall back on against a dangerous striker in Neal. From a betting perspective, I think the line's a little wide. I think Geoff Neal's getting a bit disrespected here, but again, this is a super prospect. Shavkat Rakhmonov is not like these other guys. Frankly, there aren't many guys at 170 pounds that I could see beating him at this point. There are some that'll give him a tough fight at the very top of the division, but a clear-cut guy just smokes him out. I don't see that. I really don't. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov's the real deal, and I think he wins this fight inside the distance because that's what he does. Hold on, wait right there. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment who you think will be walking away with the belts this week. Is it Gane and Shevchenko? Is it Jones and Grasso? Well, let me know. Next, we're looking at a fight, and this is one of those die on the hill kind of fights. You're either with us or against us, depending on the side that you're on. Mateusz Gamrot stepping in on short notice in place of Dan Hooker to take on Jalin Turner, and Gamrot is an absolute grinder, always looking for takedowns. He can strike, but it's nothing to write home about. It's more so the wrestling. And not just his wrestling, but specifically his chain wrestling and his scrambles that make him so special. We saw that on full display when he was able to win a decision over Arman Tsarukyan, where he secured 6 takedowns, but the numbers kind of don't tell the whole story there. Him and Tsarukyan were scrambled eggs for the entire fight, and Gamrot showed incredible cardio in that 5-round spot. Now he's coming off a loss to Beneil Dariush, who was able to get back to his feet quickly every time that Gamrot took him down, and he was able to outstrike Mateusz Gamrot as well. We all remember Dariush cracked him with a big overhand that dropped him, and that's 2 fights. It makes 2 consecutive fights where he's been knocked down. Now he's facing Jalin Turner, who has serious power, all the length imaginable for the weight class, and is coming into this on a full camp. I think there's a ton of value on the side of Turner this week as an underdog because he's going to be the better striker, and I would not be surprised if he drops Mateusz Gamrot early this week, and on top of that, he's a ruthless finisher on the mat. Gamrot's going to be shooting for takedowns early, often, constantly, and Jalin Turner snatches necks with the best of them. Now, Jalin Turner can also lose a grueling, grappling kind of decision. We saw that a few years ago against Matt Frivola, and if anybody can outwork you with their wrestling, it's going to be Mateusz Gamrot. But I really like the momentum from Jalin Turner winning his last 5 fights all by way of finish. I like the size, I like the youth, I like the past few fights where it's just been impossible to bet against him. So give me the better athlete here, give me the better striker, give me the more dangerous guy in the opening round. Give me Jalin Turner to win this week by submission. Next, we have an absolute setup, an alley-oop. I don't need to tell you who wins this fight. It's obvious that Jamie Pickett has the better experience and he's going to knock Bo Nickal out. I'm kidding. Relax. Keep your pants on. No, Bo Nickal for sure wins this fight, and he does it in the first round by way of submission because the wrestling from Bo Nickal is unlike anything Pickett has ever seen before. And I see Bo Nickal making it look as easy as he did on the Contender Series. The skill gap between them in the grappling department is too wide, and it supersedes the experience edge that Pickett has. Bo Nickal moneyline is impossible to justify betting on this week, but Bo Nickal by first round submission is plus money, and that's clearly the best bet if you want to have something down on this fight. I expect him to take Pickett down and choke him shortly after, like we saw him do in those last 2 fights on Contender Series. And what's cool about the hype surrounding Bo Nickal is that there's a good chance we end up seeing all of his fights live. His knockout in his 1 fight before coming to the Contender Series went viral. Everybody saw it. And then we got to see him live in his 2nd and 3rd fight on the Contender Series. Now he's in the UFC, and he's probably probably here to stay. So I'm excited to see how the UFC goes about building him up. I'm excited to see what's next for him after he makes quick work of the Night Wolf Jamie Pickett. The pick for me in this fight is going to be Bo Nickal by submission in the first round. Next, we have a fight between Cody Garbrandt and Trevin Jones. I'm going to come right out and say it straight away. Cody Garbrandt should win this fight. He's better than 5-star Jones literally everywhere. Faster hands, bigger power, slicker wrestling, higher caliber experience, better training camp. The only area where Trevin Jones is better is likely the durability. Because Cody Garbrandt and Eddie Wineland have the same chin. Like, the difference between a vape pen and Cody No Love is that a vape pen can take a few hits before it dies. And it sucks that it's gotten to this point because I really don't like Trevin Jones. I don't think that Trevin Jones is all that good, but it's tough to trust Cody Garbrandt. Now, I say that Trevin Jones isn't all that good, but there's kind of an asterisk there, right? Because he's gotten a really tough stretch of opponents. Timur Valiev, Mario Bautista, he loses to Said Yakub Rakhmonov, who was recently released from the UFC, which is bananas. He lost to Javid Basharat, who's undefeated. He lost to Raoni Barcelos, who we know is a beast. But he's also losing these fights because he's getting out-grappled and or he doesn't let his hands go. And for those reasons, I think that Cody Garbrandt has some real opportunities to win this week, because if Jones doesn't let his hands go, Cody Garbrandt's going to touch him up. If Cody Garbrandt decides to wrestle, he should have a ton of success. And I would hope that with all the knockdowns and the knockouts that he's suffered in the past few years, that he's putting more emphasis on wrestling in his camp. You aren't going to get knocked out if you're in top position on the ground unless you're fighting Kevin Holland or Nico Price. That's not an issue here. So I expect Garbrandt to wrestle here and have success like we saw Rakhmonov and Barcelos have. If they stay on the feet, No Love still has that big power in his hands, and if Jones gets caught watching, Cody's going to land a big fast punch down the middle and sit him down. It's do or die for Cody Garbrandt in this spot, and I expect him to do, because the skill set, skill for skill, he's much better. So give me Cody Garbrandt to win this fight, and I think he wins by way of knockout. Next, we're looking at a fight with Dricus du Plessis and Derek Brunson. There's a 10-year age gap here, and that's giving me a lot of pause. That 10-year age gap is huge, and Brunson never had a good gas tank to begin with. Dricus seemingly doesn't have a great gas tank either, but he clearly has the mental fortitude to push through fatigue, which he'll need to do this week. He's coming off a third-round submission win over Darren Till, who had nothing left in the tank at that point. But in the second round, Darren Till was working du Plessis. And in his fight before that, he fought Brad Tavares in a fight where he wasn't able to get Brad Tavares down. He didn't get the takedowns he needed. He went 0 for 7. He did let his hands go. He did push a pace, and he ultimately won a decision, though. So you have to love the motor from du Plessis, the physical strength, and the finishing upside. Now, on the other side, you have Blonde Brunson, who presents a lot of unique challenges to du Plessis this week. He's coming off a loss to Jared Cannonier, where he was doing great work before he gassed hard in the second round. He was ultimately finished. Now, that was over a year ago. He went into that fight on a 5-fight win streak, and he was out wrestling everyone. And frankly, I don't think we've ever seen Derek Brunson out wrestled. Even years ago, he took down Yoel Romero 3 times. Now, Dricus du Plessis gave up a takedown to Darren Till. So cardio aside, I don't see how du Plessis is able to wrestle with Derek Brunson. I don't see how he's able to take him down, nor do I see him being able to defend takedowns. Now, the volume and the power for du Plessis is a major advantage. You see the 8 losses up there. 6 of his 8 losses have come by knockout, and Dricus has that power. Brunson also has a ton of power, and Dricus has shown he's very hittable. He crashes the pocket with his head way up in the air, just throwing strikes out there, and sophisticated strikers are going to be able to counter him all day. Darren Till was almost lining him up in the third round with an elbow, but that's when Dricus du Plessis changed levels, was able to get him down. Let that elbow land, he's finished. For me, the toughest fight on the card to pick by far. Cardio is king in MMA, and Dricus du Plessis obviously is winning there, but I do think that Derek Brunson has better skills and obviously way better experience. I think the sharper play here, because the line is so wide, is to take the sizable dog money on Brunson this week. I could see Brunson winning this week inside the distance. If it does go the distance, I have to imagine that du Plessis wins. So a Derek Brunson decision no bet looks pretty good this week. A bet like that is offered on a lot of sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook has some of them. So give me Derek Brunson to win this week, or should I say Blonde Brunson to win this week inside the distance. But if you want to take a bet, Derek Brunson, decision no bet makes a ton of sense. Next, we're looking at a fight that should be extremely close, considering that these two have a similar fighting style. We have Vivi Araujo versus Amanda Ribas. Now, I do have a hard lean here on Amanda Ribas to win by decision, and I say that because Araujo absorbs a ton of strikes and has poor striking defense. Araujo in her last fight lost nearly every round to Alexa Grasso. She got touched up, she went 2 for 10 on takedown attempts. She also has a loss in the UFC to Jessica I, where she got outstruck as well, and went 2 for 7 on takedown attempts. Ribas has strong takedown defense, good jiu-jitsu if she is taken down, and the boxing to win the striking exchanges if these two stay on the feet. Ribas is coming off a split decision loss to Katlyn Chookagian in a fight where I thought she won, and before that she was 5-1 in the UFC, with her only loss coming to Marina Rodriguez, where we have to give her a pass because she lost to Marina Rodriguez, and that happens to a lot of people. The best bet here is clearly the over round prop, and the books are hip to it. It's at -270 the last time I looked. Or just take that this fight goes the distance, but I'm going to go with the younger fighter here, the tighter hands, the strong takedown defense to grind out a win on the judges' scorecards. Give me Amanda Ribas by decision. Next we have a fight with Julian Marquez and Marc-Andre Barriault. Marquez got packed up like a suitcase last time out by Greg Rodriguez. We've been saying for a while now that Julian Marquez doesn't appear to be that good. We've seen multiple times now he Homer Simpsons his way to victory, walking through punches, winging big shots of his own. He's an opportunistic grappler, I'll give him that. He has a way of snatching up submissions, and that's going to help him this week considering his matchup. Marc-Andre Barriault reminds me a lot of Alex Morono with slower striking and not as clean grappling. He's a generalist, but he likes to wear on guys. He uses his forward pressure and toughness to break his opponents, and he's had mixed results in the UFC because of that limited skill set. You see 6 losses on his record, 5 of those have come from within the UFC, and most recently he lost to Fluffy Hernandez by submission, which no shame in that, Fluffy's kind of a beast. Before that, he submitted Jordan Wright in the first round, in a round where he was clearly losing before Wright decided to feed him his neck. Before that, he was knocked out in 16 seconds by Chidian Jokwani, so it's very hard to get a read on Marc-Andre because in his wins he's looked dominant for the most part, and when he loses he's either getting finished or he's just looking a step behind. For me, I have to go with the more dangerous guy in Julian Marquez. I expect him to have the slight edge in punching power and submission upside if Marc-Andre takes a lazy shot. Again, he did get destroyed by RoboCop, but before that he looked like he couldn't have been knocked out. So if the chin isn't complete dust after what RoboCop did to him, he should be able to take the shots from Marc-Andre and land some of his own. I actually do see this fight going the distance though, with Julian Marquez winning rounds because he's having bigger moments. I can also see Marquez winning by submission, but the pick for me in this fight is going to be Julian Marquez by decision. Next we have Garry versus Kenan Song, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that at times I've been critical of Garry. He makes a lot of mistakes, especially defensively, but what makes him undeniable is the accuracy in his strikes and his ability to pull guys into his range so that he can land his counter shots. He throws punches and kicks with fluidity and power, which I think will result in an early finish this week. His opponent Kenan Song hasn't fought in nearly 2 years. He's coming off a first round knockout to Max Griffin. Song is not a bum by any means. He has power, he can grapple, he has good experience, but his power and his willingness to throw is going to be his undoing, because for as bad defensively as Garry has been, he does have a good chin. He's also very young, so some of the mistakes that he's been making, like leaving his chin way up in the air, standing square at times, those are likely being ironed out in practice each day. So when I take into account the durability, the timing, the improvement as a mixed martial artist, I think all signs point to Garry winning by knockout this week. If Song wants to grapple, Garry's a solid grappler, good jiu-jitsu, and he could submit him on the ground, but I think these guys are going to stand and bang for around 3 minutes and Song goes down in round 1. The pick for me in this fight is Garry by knockout. Next we have a fight that also won't go the distance with Mana Martinez and Cameron Saaiman. Interesting matchup here. Cameron Saaiman is 1-0 in the UFC after beating Steven Kozlow, but I must say I don't think he would be 1-0 if Steven Kozlow didn't step in on short notice. He was originally supposed to fight Ronnie Lawrence. Now Steven Kozlow made his debut on short notice as a massive underdog and was getting the better of the grappling exchanges, finding himself in full mount multiple times and really letting the fight slip away late because he was exhausted in round 3. But Saaiman did not show great takedown defense in that fight, gave up a lot of bad positions. Ronnie Lawrence would have absolutely Habib'd him. And I do think that Cameron Saaiman's going to struggle against strong grapplers moving forward. But this week, he doesn't have a crazy grappler on his hands. He's got Mana Martinez, who's more of a brawler, which should result in an awesome fight for as long as it lasts. Mana Martinez has stupid power in his hands, and we saw that last time out against Brandon Davis, dropping him twice. It's not an easy thing to do against Brandon Davis. And he did the same thing against Ronnie Lawrence in his fight before that. And Cameron Saaiman, very hittable, leaves his chin way up in the air, and for younger fighters like him, that's not really surprising. Plus, he's taking a step up in competition against Mana Martinez, who has more fights and more experience than Saaiman or anyone Saaiman's faced. What I also like for Mana is that he's gone the distance in his 3 UFC fights, 45 minutes of ring time. That gives him a lot of tape, a lot of material to look back on with his coaches and things to learn from. Saaiman has maybe around 45 minutes of total ring time in his professional career. So I like the odds. I think there's a ton of value on Martinez, who isn't stepping in on short notice, has a ton of power, experience, and I think he can knock this kid out. Plus, I think he can wrestle effectively if the opportunities are there. So give me Mana Boy to win this fight. Give me Mana Boy by knockout. Next, we have a fight with Tabatha Ricci and Jessica Penne. Jessica Penne is 40 years old. 40 years old. 12-year age gap should really build value into Tabatha Ricci's price, and on top of that, Tabatha Ricci's grappling is something else. She's coming off back-to-back wins where she secured 5 takedowns in each of those wins and over 16 minutes of total control time. Her only loss was up a weight class in her UFC debut on short notice, I believe, against Manon Fior, who is undefeated in the UFC and on the brink of a title shot. Jessica Penne's age matches her takedown defense, sitting at 40%, and that's not doing her any favors this week. I expect another dominant performance from Baby Shark this week. If she wants to stand and trade, I think she'll have success, but I think she's going to take Jessica Penne down and have even more success. I'm actually surprised by the line. I thought it would be wider. Most of the time when we get surprised by lines, it's because they're too wide, but I think that Tabatha Ricci could be a bigger favorite. So I do think that there's a ton of value there. She looks like a solid parlay piece, better everywhere, 12 years younger, and coming into this with a lot of momentum. So give me Baby Shark this weekend and give me her to win by decision. Next, we have the UFC debut of ferocious Farid Basharat. He's supposed to be fighting Damon Blackshear this week, and Basharat is a big favorite, justifiably so. He's better everywhere as well. Farid Basharat, just like Javid Basharat, is a monster. The guy throws a ton of strikes, he's an excellent grappler, and he doesn't get tired. He pushes a pace. We saw him look amazing on Contender Series, picking up 10-8 rounds in the process, winning every round, winning every minute of his fight. And this very much seems like a setup spot against Damon Blackshear. He ends up drawing to Youssef Zalal. I'm a big Youssef Zalal guy. I like the way that he fights, but Youssef Zalal is not very effective at the highest level, and to go to a draw with him to only land 27 strikes throughout the entirety of the fight, not a good look. I think that his price on DraftKings is completely justified at 9,100 because he's either going to get a finish or he's going to score a ton of points with a dominant win, landing a lot of strikes, takedowns, in most likely every round. But I think the most likely outcome here is that he does finish Damon Blackshear, so give me Farid Basharat inside the distance. But if you've made it to this point in the video, I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, if you're new, and comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works.